Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's Robert Phoenix broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas. You may be wondering why I have my winter hat on. It's because the solar minimum is about to hit and temperatures are beginning to drop. And in some parts of the country, you're going to get your first blast of winter. So what's going on? Good to be connecting with you. Who's trying to call me now? That's not going to work. It's not going to work. Sorry. Let me just check in with everybody, see how everybody's doing. Let's see, who do we have? Hey, there's Judy. Hey, Judy. The purple one is in the house. 1-0 Dragon 14. Hey, Kathy. Nice to see you. Speaking of cold, it's going to get cold up in Kathy's neck of the woods. Kathy was my eyes in the sky, my boots in the ground. She told me Kathy lives up in North Dakota, and apparently Greta Thunberg is touring America. And Greta was in North Dakota, I believe Bismarck, if I'm not mistaken. And I guess she was there to hang out with the Native Americans and, create that tribal bond. And make sure that the Native Americans are on the right side of the climate war. So thanks for that little reportage, Kathy. I've got people everywhere. I get reports from all over the place. People send me information. People send me all kinds of interesting stuff. Sometimes I get into it, look at it, and say, "Wow, this is interesting. Let me get into it. Let me talk about it." And other times I'm like, let's see where this goes. So another big rumor now that's circulating is things could get very hot here in October, even though the temperatures are cooling off. Let me just check in with the chat room a little bit. We got Marie. Hey, Marie. Looking forward to seeing you. It's going to be great to see you. It's got Uncle Glenn. There's Ian. And maybe they'll bless her with their knowledge and tell her she is. Oh, look who's here. Oh my gosh. Look who's here. It's the man himself. Oh. The master of disaster. Yes. So I have to play Jasper's song. I have to play his entry music. Give me a second. I'm going to play Jasper. I've got this thing teed up now. And again, I want to thank Gabriel and Caroline. I was calling Caroline Barbara. I don't know why. But Gabriel and Caroline for creating a very cool little song for Jasper. And guess what? I get to play it. And I have it all teed up now. So it's not just a song file or MP3 file. It's more than that. Give me a second. You guys are going to take this. I'm going to take this. I just have to give it a little screen share mode. I wish I could just hit a button and just start this thing, but it takes a little bit of probing timing here. Okay, here it is. I gotta go back. I gotta do one more thing. It's a little early. Still getting it together. Don't hate me. Hold on. All right. Now we got this. Are you ready? Here we go.
Jasper, the astrological cat. Look up your chart, show you right where you're at. It's Jasper, the astrological cat.
All right. How many cats have their own walk-up song on the internet? I count maybe a handful. This is one of them right here. It's Jasper, the astrological cat. So, thank you, Jasper. Thank you for being a part of today's show. Let's get the mic back here. So there's a lot going on. One of the some of the information I've been getting corresponds to Sunday night show. If you've been, by the way, I think Jeff France might listen to my show. I think Jeff Rentz listens to my show because or follows my Facebook feed or something. Because there was one time where I put up a video of Frank Zappa being on, let's see, Ed Sullivan. Was it Ed Sullivan? No, it was the Tonight Show. It was Tonight Show, and Steve Allen was the host, and Steve was pretty musical, very smart guy, and Frank Zappa got on there and he played a bicycle, and I put that on Facebook, and within an hour it was on Jeff Rentz's site. Like, how does that happen? I used to notice this, by the way, with Alex Jones as well. And I would post stuff or I would talk about things, and then they would quickly be into Alex Jones's talking point zone. So Sunday night I talked, and look, this is not something that's uncommon, by the way, because just like people send me stuff, I'm sure people send Jeff Rentz stuff all the time too. So I'm not saying that this is the exposition of some kind of code, some kind of listening code conspiracy deal. But on Sunday night, I talked about this November 3rd event in Seattle, which people have been sort of bandying about on the internet. I put it up on Facebook probably about, maybe 3 weeks ago? Maybe probably three weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Anyway, if you're late to the party, the idea or the theory is that there will be some kind of massive explosion in Seattle to make it look like it was a nuclear explosion, but it's not. In actuality, what it will be a supercharged oxygen, nitrogen explosion, but it will be triggered by the presence of a blimp. And I think a Goodyear blimp or something like that. And so the German guy who does this video, I wish I could play it. It's a half an hour long, and you have to watch the entire thing because of all the connections that's being made in this video. So the idea here is that this is going to go off at a Seahawks game, and the game is against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And what's interesting about the Seahawks is that they were owned by Paul Allen, who is now dead. And they just inducted Paul Allen into the Ring of Fame, the Seahawks Ring of Fame. So the team is now owned by his sister. And I'm not sure what her appetite for football is. Maybe she keeps the team for her brother's legacy. It's interesting because there are a number of NFL owners now who are women, and they're beginning to inherit teams. We had the McCaskey, so we have the old gal Virginia McCaskey, who is the daughter of. So I think she's the daughter of George Halas. She's in her 90s, so that makes sense, right? I think she's the daughter of George Halas. She's female. She owns a team. What's her name? Gail Benson for the Saints. Tom Benson died. She inherited the team. We have the owners of the Tennessee Titans, the Adams family, and it's the daughter. She owns the team. So that's 4. Then I guess Martha Clay Ford, although I think William Clay Ford Jr. actually owns the Lions, but she's in the conversation. Now we have Paul Allen's sister, who owns the Seahawks. And it's probably going to come down to one of the daughters of the Bolin family who are going to wind up owning the Denver Broncos. It's a really interesting kind of statistic where there are 30 teams in the NFL, and about 6 of them are going to be owned by women. Or nominally, in the case of McCaskey, owned by a woman. And I think the trend is going to continue because some of these owners are going to pass away, and the teams will be left to their wives. Although in the case of Bob Kraft, since his wife already passed away, it'll be left to his freaky son. Anyway, so this is on the radar for the 3rd of November, and Rentz was talking about it at length last night. And it was right after the Sunday night show, which is, where we covered it, and I looked at the chart. And then Jeff went on to say that there are a lot of people who predict things on the internet, and then when they're wrong, nobody ever calls them on. And I do agree with that. And you have to be very careful when you're in the prediction business. Very, very careful. Unless it's ironclad, and you've got it sorted out. You probably don't want to cross that line, because once you cross that line and you make a few bad calls or a few bad predictions, your credibility, unless you're David Wilcock, goes down the drain. So I've been very circumspect when I look at forecasting and trends. It's usually with kind of a great deal of research and trying to be as specific as possible, while also allowing for things to move and shift, because we're living in an environment where things are rapidly moving and shifting. And let's say we'll use the November 3rd incident, because so many people are talking about it and paying attention to it. That might not happen now. That because of somebody who is a little fringy, but did an incredible job of putting together a lot of eclectic pieces of information, but all woven together in a way that makes some insane sense. Maybe perhaps that might have pumped the brakes on an event like that. We don't know. We don't know. Simply by noticing things, sometimes we change the outcome of things. Our attitude in the moment changes the outcome of things. And this is a really important aspect to understand. We don't fully comprehend it at times. How you show up and what your attitude and what your vibration is in any given situation can affect the outcome. It can affect the outcome. So that's why I'm a firm believer of trying to be as calm, clear, and in the moment as possible. That's not always easy to do, though, because we're living in very, very trying times. So let's bring it back to the Seahawks Bucks November 3rd situation. But that's in November, and yet we're talking about events that could be unfolding here in October. And astrologically, the key planet here is Mars, because remember, Mars represents action and aggression, the activation of will. Speaking of Mars, poor Baker Mayfield, he's getting his Mars kicked all over the playing field last night. Baker's an Aries, and I actually believe in Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to be okay. But he's on the humility tour right now. He is on the humility tour. And it's a very interesting kind of lesson, collective lesson, when you get too big for your britches. And he can't help it. I mean, the guy's an Aries. I've looked at his chart. He's got a pretty fiery chart. He's an Aries. And so if you're, and I think I think he was born on a full moon, Libra moon. So he's going to be seen, because that's the nature of the full moon. People with full moons are generally seen, or they're public, or they're not shrinking violets, full moon people. Hello, paging Donald Trump, not just a full moon, but an eclipse moon. We'll talk about him. But anyway, he's going through the humility tour right now, and the 49ers just absolutely crushed. Freddie Kitchens is not long for that job. I hate to say it. And if the Cleveland Browns were smart, they would hire Jay Gruden right now in a heartbeat. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about sports today, but in a different context. But that would be what I would do. Let's see. Anyway, let's get back to the Red October stuff. It's been talked about over in the Q universe, and apparently the rumor that there are UN troops swirling around the country continues to promulgate and populate the internet. I've been getting more and more news reports from people that are seeing stuff, talking about stuff, making connections. So it's something to just file away. Now, there's another rumor that Trump has engaged a number of USMC, that's United States Marine Corps units, to be ready to be dispatched on a local level, meaning nationally. And this is all happening during a time where Trump is poking the big bear with a sharp and pointed stick. And he's, again, I've never seen anything like this before. I don't think you have. I don't think anybody has. Maybe since, I don't know, maybe since Nero. I'm not going to put Trump in the Hitlerian category, because that would be not true. Although there are some interesting parallels. I think there are interesting parallels, but I don't think that that's ultimately true. I won't put him into Mussolini. Mussolini and Hitler were communists. They were communists. Hitler was buddies with Karl Marx. Hitler spent time with Karl Marx. Karl Marx, I think, stayed at what was it, Hitler's grandmother's house or aunt's house. So he got to know Karl Marx. And if you look at quote unquote Nazism, it's also connected to social democracy, which is socialism. So in that version, the Nazis basically took everybody's property. They took everybody's property. They took everybody's money. And they just consolidated all the wealth under one symbol and under one flag. And then you didn't have any say about what you wanted to do or needed to do or chose to do. You had to listen to the state. So if the state said you're going to be in the army, or the state said you're a beautiful breeder and you're going to create beautiful Aryan children, and that's what you were going to do. A lot of people don't understand that about Nazi Germany. It was a socialist model. And then on the other side of what we would call the Iron Curtain, which of course sprung up after the Russians took all that land, we had another version of socialism, communism. So we basically had two forms of social statist models fighting against one another. So to that extent, I don't believe Trump has very much in common with Hitler, not at all. However, Hitler was surrounded in his cabinet by Jews. Hitler himself was probably biologically Jewish. I know it's a blasphemy, but it's the truth. And you look at the industrialists that were supporting Hitler in the Third Reich, and the whole idea here was to create a scenario so that ultimately it would be much more appealing to the Jewish population of Germany to relocate and go to a place like, let's say, Israel, because Ersatz Israel was already in the works. I mean, Theodor Herzl and the Zionist Congress had already worked out a deal with the British so they could have a piece of land. Problem is, most of the Jews in Germany were having way too good of a time. They were incredibly successful. They were retailers and furriers and bankers, and they were living really, really well, really well. If you watch the movie Cabaret, which is a very interesting movie, you'll see a version of the German aristocracy that is portrayed by a young woman who pretends not to be Jewish, but they are, and she comes from a very well-to-do family. So the idea was to create conditions that would be severe enough so a number of German Jews would then relocate to Israel, with the idea in a lot of ways that Western Europe had enough of kind of their interloping, right? And it's like, okay, well, thank you for making us rich. Thank you for being able to show us money magic, but be done with you now. You got to go over to the Middle East and go over there, please. But it turned out that that ultimately was a big part of the plan anyway, because now Tel Aviv and Jerusalem has become the center of the universe in a lot of ways, or the planet, and a lot of operations and activities are run out of that area of the world. So it's interesting how this whole game works. That there's always some kind of benefit to a catastrophe or disaster or a social movement, and that may not always be evident at the beginning. And anyway, just wanted to. It's a little bit of a divergence, but Trump is not like Hitler to that extent, but because Trump has a really powerful Jewish lobby behind him, and people like Sheldon Adelson and Paul Singer, we know the players, Jared Kushner, his father, the Mercers, Bibi Netanyahu, we know the players. So to that extent, Trump is kind of like Hitler, and people say, how can you say that Hitler was friends with the Jewish population? He was. The industrialists were funding both sides of that revolution, both sides of that war. That's how the game works. With the exception of Henry Ford, who was vehemently anti-Jewish and anti-communist and anti-union, maybe Henry Ford really believed in Hitler, because the Ford Corporation was very involved in the rebuilding of Germany after World War I. So maybe he believed in it. I don't know. It's an interesting topic and way too long for this show. But there is some parallels in the power base in a lot of ways. So Trump is essentially turning on his power base now. It's very interesting to watch. It's incredibly interesting to watch because he's under fire. And he's there. The Democrats are coming at him with all this impeachment garbage, and I just don't believe there's anything there. I think it's a bunch of smoke and mirrors. Just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. That's all it is. I mean, why can't the leader of a country call another leader of a country to find out if there's a person who's involved and has been involved in corruption? I'd love to see the phone transcripts from any other previous administration. Okay, I'd love to see that, and that's not even including the fact that the Obama administration went out and got illegal FISA warrants so that they could spy on Trump and the Trump campaign and the Trump administration. But nobody talks about that. Look, I'm not here to defend Donald Trump. I'm just here to point out the hypocrisy in the situation, because that's what's happening. Nobody ever talks about it, but it was a big part of what happened over the last 2 fucking years, where we had to go through this charade of Russian collusion and all the other BS that was associated with it. What a waste of time, what a waste of money. And now they're on to the next thing, which is Ukrainian collusion and Trump breaking all these laws. And now there's supposed to be a second whistleblower. The second whistleblower is apparently the first whistleblower. That's essentially. So this new second whistleblower isn't really somebody new. It's not. It's just a second whistleblower is the agency that the first whistleblower theoretically was a part of. So it's an echo effect. It's an old military tactic. It's an old military tactic to make it look like that there's more than one respondent or more than one player involved. When in actuality, it's just one. Whoever that one is, it could be Adam Schiff for all we know. But again, it's just more bullshit that they're throwing at the wall. And Trump he's on a rampage now. I'm going to get to the rampage part. I don't know if you've seen his tweets, but they're classic. Apparently, Mitt Romney wants to enter the race. Good, let him. Can't stand that asshole. Sorry to use profane language this time in the morning. There is a video that I used to play over on Facebook. It was when Mitt Romney was running for president, and gives you an insight into who this guy is. And There was a guy who was he was a vet, you know, a Middle East vet, and he was banged up pretty good. He was in a wheelchair. You could tell he was in pain, and somebody who was really looking for some positive response from Romney about cannabis and cannabis pain relief. And Romney just set up campaign stops when he was running for president. Yeah, Romney just blows him off. He just blows him off, and says, "Oh yeah, well, yeah, I'm very, very sensitive to the needs of vets, and we really think that synthetic cannabis is the way to go." And of course he would, because he would have a finger in that pie. He'd probably have some company that was working on a version of synthetic cannabis that he could profit from, and have a big virtue signal and say, "Oh, look what we're doing for the vets." But we're not going to have just regular old cannabis, because I don't want to be involved in that. I can't own a patent on that. And he was just so dismissive. And the thing with Romney is, just look at his ears. You cannot trust a man with those ears. He has very small attached ears. You can't trust a person like that. So now Romney wants to run for president. Good, let him get embarrassed. Unless, you know, let him get on the stage with Trump. And if Trump has to debate Romney, he'll chew him up and spit him out. And the rumor is Hillary now is getting ready to jump into the race, which of course many people have been talking about. And good, let her, bring her back. Third time's a charm, right? Third time's a charm. She'll lose again. She'll totally lose again. Wait till Trump gets her on the stage and starts talking about shit like Ukraine and Russia and Uranium One. And he was, you know, he was. A lot of people think that he was conning people during those debates, and that's possible. I wouldn't put past Trump at all. Trump will, you know, use whatever he has at his disposal to get what he needs to get done. But it'll be different the second time around. And what he was also doing, though, during those debates, and keep this in mind, that he was actually educating people as to what was going on with Hillary Clinton and the Clintons, which is kind of what Trump does in a lot of ways. There's a lot of information that gets distributed through the Trump machine. So let me play you. Let me just show you a tweet that I grabbed this morning, and it has to do with some of the things that Trump's been blasting about. So here we have, this one is classic. I think he's trolling people. I don't think he really means this in some ways, but he does in others. As I've stated strongly before, and just to reiterate, if Turkey does anything, that I, in my great and unmatched wisdom. Now, who uses that language? That's a nod to the Wizard of Oz, by the way. So I'm sure there's going to be some Q-tards, some Anons, I guess, that will go in and break this down. But that's Wizard of Oz language. Yeah, my great and unmatched wisdom, considered to be off limits, I will totally destroy and obliterate the economy of Turkey. I've done before. They must, with Europe and others, watch over. So he's actually right, because he did something with Turkey earlier in the year, and Turkey went on a bank run, and they realized how vulnerable they were. So Trump basically used an economic salvo to let Turkey know that don't get too big for your britches in the Middle East. And I know that this is all politics and news of the world and all that bullshit, but this is kind of where we are. Then we have right here, Donald J. Trump. The United States was supposed to be in Syria for 30 days. That was many years ago. We stayed and got deeper and deeper into battle with no aim in sight. When I arrived in Washington, ISIS was running rampant in the area. We quickly defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate. ISIS was a creation of the United States. It was a creation of the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Israel, and the Brits. And I think Turkey played a small role, but that we created ISIS. And when I was over on Spreaker, I talked about this constantly. I think I started talking about it when I was on Blog Talk Radio. And you could see that there were all these images of ISIS that were in the media that were tells. They were total tells of what was going on. They were completely, how do I say this, supercharging. They were totally supercharging this idea and this force of ISIS that they were creating. You look at Madonna when she is performing the Super Bowl ritual. And the Super Bowl ritual, do you remember it was the one where, what were the teams? It was the Super Bowl just before the 49ers. So it was, I think, the Patriots. It was the Patriots and the Giants. It was the Patriots and the team that I think they beat. Anyway, I've lost track of this. But it was the Patriots Super Bowl. It was the one before, it was 2011. It was the one before the 2012-2013 season in Super Bowl. That's when the Niners went to the Super Bowl. It was 2013. Anyway, she was a combination of Baphomet and ISIS. All right, here we go. We've got Nikki Haley. We must always have the backs of our allies. If we expect them to have our back. The Kurds were instrumental in our successful fight against ISIS in Syria. Leaving them to die is a big mistake. Hashtag Turkey is not our friend. Well, Turkey, just to let you know, buys a shitload of weapons from the United States. They buy fighter planes, they buy bombers, they buy a lot of weapons from the good old US of A. Turkey is a member of NATO. And if you believe in those organizations and all that folderol, there's another word people don't use anymore. You believe in that, then you'd have to say, okay, well, they're a partner of NATO. We're backing a partner of NATO. And the Kurds are basically from northwestern Iraq. That's where they're from. And they moved into Syria. Nobody asked them to be in Syria. The Syrians didn't ask us to be in Syria. And by the way, we were not there to fight ISIS. Let's be clear about that. We were there to fight with ISIS initially. We were there to support ISIS, to support their troop movements, give them intel. Then the Russians got involved. And then the Turks started to fight because they're not friends with the Kurds. They don't want the Kurds to have northern Syria and carve out their own little patch of Islamic heaven in northern Syria. That the Turks have their eyes on that. And I'm not even saying that that's a good idea for the Turks. They'll probably have to answer to the Syrians because the Syrians are trying probably to regain their borders. But we were never there to fight ISIS. We were there to help ISIS. We created ISIS. We created the whole thing. We created their little TV broadcasts. We created their fake beheadings. We created all that stuff. It was just a total fabrication and a total lie. ISIS was USIS, to be honest with you, or to be frank with you, it was USIS, not ISIS. So for her to go in and say, oh, they were our allies to fight ISIS. ISIS was our ally. ISIS was us. And the Kurds were there pretty much fighting alongside of the Russians. That's what was happening. And then eventually when Trump got into office, he was like, let's get out of here. Let's shut this thing down. And you have to look at the boots on the ground and the facts that war is pretty much over. And it's pretty much over because Trump decided to get out of the ISIS business. That's exactly what happened. So Nikki Haley, who's nothing but a shrill mouthpiece for the Zionists, has gone on record and once again proven who she is and shown her colors. Now, Trump is probably going to have to back off now. And he says that we only have 50 to 100 troops there in northern Syria. And so it's really not a big deal. but he has no stomach or appetite for war. And Trump understands this. Trump understands this. And this is the way that I think Trump will ultimately turn on Israel. Because if you follow the script, we wind up fighting all of Israel's war for Israel. This is what happens. We fight their wars for them. We send our troops in. We send our men, our women. They're the ones that are getting shot. They're the ones that are getting amputated. They're the ones that are coming home with just savage PTSD. The Israelis don't really commit troops. They'll do flyovers. They'll use their planes. They'll shoot shit down. They'll do some stealth attacks. They will use their Group 8200, which creates chaos and havoc with cybersecurity and cyber warfare, but they don't commit troops. That's on the United States, and I think Trump is sick of it. So to that end, he is going against his greatest ally in some ways. And a long time ago, when I started to break down Trump in his chart, and I'll just say it again, I said he is not to be trusted. And that includes his closest allies and closest business partners. You cannot trust him for any number of reasons. Mostly because he's got a Sun-Uranus conjunction in Gemini. He's going to be disruptive, and he is on a disruptive freak show right now. He's got Jupiter basically sitting on his moon and opposing his sun and opposing his Uranus. He's like a more sanitized and how should we say, more elevated version of Antonio Brown in some ways, who's the football player who took a flamethrower to the NFL with 3 planets in Gemini, Mercury in Gemini, and Saturn-Uranus opposition with Jupiter on his natal Saturn and Uranus. He's a wild card, and that's what Trump is right now. Jupiter is firing up his wild card status. And because he has the moon in Sagittarius eclipsed, we're dealing with foreign countries, Sagittarius. So Trump is doing some very interesting stuff on that front. Now, there's this idea that he is alienating his Republican base inside of the White House. And you don't want to do that in a time of impeachment or potential impeachment. And a lot of people think Trump is playing the 5D chess game. Some people think that he's sort of making it up as he goes. And I think it's probably a little bit of both. This is somebody who people inside the government or the structure of the government, inside that heavy duty Capricornian realm, they play by a certain set of rules and a certain set of protocols. It's what they've been doing in Washington, D.C. for hundreds of years, but really perfected probably since the end of World War II with the birth of the OSS and the CIA and the intelligence agencies. So there are protocols. You do this, you do that, you look the other way, you pretend like you're addressing an issue when you don't address the issue at all. Meanwhile, you get filthy rich, and more and more freedoms and more rights are abrogated, and in some ways abdicated, but certainly abrogated. And the next thing you know, your time in office is up, whether you're a senator or congressman or president, sitting president, and you get all your goodies. And because you played the game in the company way, you were doing your time in Satan's mill and doing a very good job of it, then the media and the press will look back on you kindly and fondly, and that's all you really give a shit about. Like, look at George W. Bush. The guy's a war criminal. He's a war criminal. But how does the press portray him? By the way, I saw a picture of him and Ellen at the Cowboys game. Boy, he is a feeble-looking dude. Does he have like early onset Alzheimer's, or what's going on with George Bush? He's just looking very weird. He's like a child. He's like been reduced to the state of a child. It's very strange. And there's Ellen sitting next to him in the Cowboys, Jerry Jones's big party booth. at the Cowboys game. What is Ellen doing in there? Right next to George Bush. Weird. Right, but you see what I'm talking about with Bush? The guy's a war criminal. But because he played the game and he glad-handed, he did everything that his masters told him to do while carving out more resources and more of a niche for his own crime family. Oh, he was such a great president. Oh, look at him. Whoa, would it be nice if we had a president? No, it wouldn't be. Because he was a fucking traitor. That's why. Then you have somebody like Trump who comes in and he's not playing the game in the way the game is played or has been played. He's breaking all these rules. And I don't know if it's always 5D chess, but he's breaking rules. And what he's doing, and remember this, whoever controls the narrative is usually the winner of whatever conflict that they're in. Whether that narrative is true or not, and let's hope that most of the times the narrative is true, but it doesn't always have to be true. Look what happened with 9/11. They controlled the narrative. By the way, 9/11 is starting to bubble up again. It is definitely starting to bubble up again. And we may see some interesting, like I think 9/11 is Trump's dead man switch. He knows what happened. He knows who was involved. And if he has to, it'll be a controlled demolition, just like the Twin Towers. That's my sense. That is my sense. That is his dead man switch. He'll play it. He'll pull it. And he's probably got all kinds of records. And he was a builder in New York City. He knows exactly what happened. Don't kid yourself. And he may say that they were dancing Saudis. Well, they were really dancing Israelis. But he was saying it to get people's attention. And he said it on purpose because he clearly got the Israelis' attention and got the Saudis' attention. Right. So Trump is very good at this. He's been doing this in business for years. And so these politicians in Washington, maybe the exception of Mitt Romney, because Mitt Romney is a business guy, but he does business differently. Mitt Romney is a predator. He's not a builder. Mitt Romney is a predator. He doesn't build anything. He goes in and he buys companies that are distressed, and then he strips them of all their assets, picks the meat off of the carcass of the company, basically lets everybody go at some point, and then the company's just a shell. That's all it is. And they'll keep the shell because it's always good to have a shell for tax purposes. But he's not a builder at all. He's a predator. So he's a very different kind of business person than Donald Trump is. Trump actually makes things. Believe it or not, he makes things. It sounds like I'm standing up for Trump today. I'm just pointing out some very obvious facts. And you could say, well, he's got 2 hotels in Turkey, which he does. There are 2 Trump Towers in Turkey. But let's get clear here. Politicians are always covering their assets. They always are. It's not like he's the first person to do this. But what he's doing is he's trying to control the narrative. And he's using Twitter as a howitzer to control the narrative. And you've been listening to people, the quote unquote pundits saying, well, he's going to piss off Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and all these Republicans. Well, he's playing a gambit here against them. And here's what's going to happen. This is where I think either the intentional or the unintentional genius really comes into play. Is that by doing this, he's smoking out the swamp on both sides. On both sides here. This is very interesting because people who have eyes to see will see that people like Mitch McConnell and Ben Sasse and Mitt Romney and Lindsey Graham and all these other phony fucks are going to turn their spots, change their spots, and they're going to go after Trump. And for people who are watching and paying attention, they're going to see that these people are the swamp creatures. We've known this, but there are people that are they're nice people, but they're kind of dense. They're finding this out now. It's easy. The left is easy. The left is easy to spot. The left is easy to smoke out. That's a no-brainer. But Trump is now going into the other side. and he's going to force their hand. And I think he's fearless. Ultimately, I think he's fearless because he's got that Mars and Leo on his ascendant, and he doesn't give a shit. He's actually at his best when he is the aggressor. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. Now he's backtracked again. He has to backtrack, but I don't think he cares about backtracking all that much. He really doesn't. Remember when he went after Syria, and he said we're going to pull out of Syria, but then they forced him to fire some dud scud into some stupid like plant somewhere, and of course all the Anons were saying that was attached to the deep state and all these pedophiles and shit. Maybe that's the case. I don't know, and I'm not sure they know either. But it served a purpose. Where are we with Iran? Where are we with Iran? You had all these people banging around, wanting to go to war with Iran. We had the big fire at the refinery, which looks like the Saudis themselves started, by the way, by bringing in a drone that was launched from a certain area, and that plant. And what is it? The Aramco, which is the state petroleum company, was looking to collect on some insurance money, and they were up and running, producing oil very, very quickly. So that was probably a controlled demolition. So where are we with war with Iran? You notice how since Bolton has left, that a lot of the anti-Iran rhetoric and stuff that's been going on in the press has kind of died down. Now they may use this impeachment as a vice grip to try to have Trump go to war with Iran, but he doesn't want to go to war with Iran. He doesn't want to go to war, period. It's not his thing. Internationally, now domestically, he's in the midst of a major war and a major battle. That is happening. So this is very interesting to watch. And we are looking at potentially this idea of this Red October, which has been talked about in Q. We always talk about October surprise. And every time October rolls around, there's always kind of a bit of trepidation. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? So the date apparently is the 19th of October where the shit hits the fan. Now the economy has been wobbling. It's been wobbling. And there is some concern that the international banking establishment would absolutely salvo the United States' economy in order to create a form of regime change and blame it on Trump. But I'll tell you what, again, I'm not here to be the cheerleader for Trump and the pom-poms. I'm just giving you what I can see is that his base is behind him even more than they were before. This whole idea with the impeachment proceedings is polarizing and galvanizing. You see, this is an Alinsky tactic. It's about polarization. So instead of Trump folding he's leaning right into it. He's leaning right into the polarization because that's part of his astrological makeup. And so he's saying, okay, you're going to put in X amount of chips. I'm going to double that. I'm going to double down. And this is what I believe angers the left to no end, because based on the Alinsky tactics, the idea here would be to shame Trump, would be to create a massive assault on his character, his integrity, his family, all that stuff. All that stuff, right? So anyway, that's what's going on. Sorry, I just got a phone call. What he's doing is he's out Alinskying the Alinskyites. That's what he's doing. They don't know it, but that's what he's doing. And I think some of it is pre-planned. I think some of it is just he's an improvisational wizard in some ways. You have to be with the Sun-Uranus conjunction and the True Node in Sagittarius. Okay, I want to play you a little video here, a little video clip. I picked this up last night, and I'm going to sign off and get out of here. I got to pick up this. I got to find you this clip that I grabbed. It's going to crack you up. Let's see if I can get it down here. Where is it? Okay. 1 second. Here it is, all the way at the bottom. So, if you haven't noticed, I wanted to talk about the NBA today, but I can't because I'm pressed for time. I'll talk about it. We'll see about tomorrow. Maybe I'll do a show tomorrow. But if you haven't noticed now, there's another war, another revolution going on. It's the Extinction Revolutionaries. And one of the things that the Extinction Revolutionaries are very big on is they're very big on vegetarianism. They don't want to kill cows. So I found this video, and it was, oh my God, you guys got to check this out. It's a confrontation of people in front of a burger restaurant. I believe this is Norway, maybe. I think it's Norway. And there's a guy that wants to get a burger. And people will not let him in to get a burger. You got to check this out. I'm going to play this for you. This is where we are. And by the way, it's going to get worse. Trust me on this. Here we go. Oh, let me get back to you. I've got a protocol here. Okay, we're good. We're good. Let's do this. All right, here we go. Check this out.
Smash dan nog niet, die staat. Had een fucking probleem. Kom er, hij een probleem. Wat? Een fucking afgehoord, man. Fucking hippie, man. Wat? Got a fucking fat shut up and get your burger. All right. Putin more straight. All right, you good? You good?
So I play it again. Let me play it one more time. So this guy's coming up. He wants to get a burger. See the burger there? There's a little burger flag. And we have, what is that? Is that an Antifa flag? And we've got about a dozen vegans going up against one carnivore. Guess who wins?
Smash dan nog niet, die staat. Had een fucking probleem. Kom er, hij een probleem. Wat? Een fucking afgehoord, man. Fucking hippie, man. Wat? Got a fucking fat shut up and get your burger. All right. Putin more straight. All right, you good?
It cracks me up because I think there's some kind of a win there at the end. Fucking get your burger, and they laugh. But do you see this typical? Yeah, maybe I just want to play this one more time. I don't even want to play it. I want to show something here. I'm going to show you. This is typical. Let's start right at the beginning. Okay, let's start right at the beginning. Let me do a screen share. I want to break this down one more time. Okay, so here we go. So who do we have here? We have these two women, and they're in front. These two tiny women are in front, and if you watch the guy, who does he push past first? He pushes past the women. Typical, that they would have the women, these small women out front, like the human shield, and trying to protect Mr. Spaghetti right here.
Smash dan nog niet, die staat. Had een fucking probleem. Kom er, hij een probleem. Wat?
Sunglass guy he's gonna go all tough here, right? Watch this. Mr. Sunglass guy, we'll play it back. He's gonna get all tough. Look, he gets right in there. See him right here? Mr. Sunglass guy thinks he's gonna, and this dude gets in the way. All right, so he's playing the role of the human shield. But Sunglass guy thinks he's gonna get a piece of this guy. and then watch what happens.
Smash dig nogen, din spand! Har du fucking problem?
Sunglass guy thinks better of it. Okay, the sunglass guy has the right idea, but realizes that a burger man would probably mop the floor with him. So then sunglass guy gets comforted. Watch this. Okay, do you see her? Do you see her? Right here. Are you okay? Are you okay? Oh, you're such a brave man and so strong for the cause. You're so brave. And watch him. He's going to go. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I got this. I got this. Meanwhile, Mr. Paleo, Mr. Burger Eater, is getting ready to take somebody's head off for a freaking burger. Okay, this is not the first or the last you're going to see of this. This is what we're going to be dealing with here, because there are a lot of people who are incredibly entitled, who think that they can determine somebody's food choice on the planet because they have some higher moral ground or moral authority. But when push came to shove, literally, they didn't do shit. Didn't do shit. So what's the moral of the story? Eat your burgers. Okay, I am out of here today. Let me just check in with you guys, see where you're at. There's one word we can understand, and it wasn't hippie. He beats them at their own game. Trump is, yeah, Steve and Chris. Trump is out Alinskying the Alinskyites. It's amazing to watch, because a lot of people would shrink from polarization. It's like, oh, you're assailing my character. And a lot of people, rightly so, because they're not used to, most people are vulnerable. But Trump is not vulnerable. This guy's been in the public eye for decades. Decades. He sat in boardrooms with sharks. Sharks. He's playing by a different set of rules. Very different set of rules. And I think that the Democrats and the Republicans need to be on notice. That they're dealing with somebody that's different, for better or worse. The old shit wasn't working anyway, right? Just look at the last 12 years or 16 years. 8 of Obama, 8 of Bush. We could throw in another 8 of Clinton, right? The last 24 years. It's a generation, by the way. That wasn't working. It's worked for some people. Now, do I endorse everything Donald Trump is doing or believes in, like 5G? The answer is absolutely not. But on this front, with this point, it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, let's see what we have here. He's a shark himself. That's right. The brown shirts. Yep. And let's see. What else do we have? Well, it says smoking swamp rats. Rhino Mitch may have second thoughts after leftist came to his Kentucky home. He may be a little concerned that nobody will come to save him. That's true. Good point. Trump has failed to attack Iran 3 times. Neocons are mad as hell. That's right. He still has not gone into Iran. George W. Bush has been out of it psychologically for at least 5 years. He is really, if you watch that video with him and Ellen, he looks like a child. The fact that T hasn't been dispatched yet speaks volumes. Anyway, be on your toes. Could be a very interesting month, very hot month. For all of you who are going to start to make your way to the Hill Country, I look forward to seeing you. I sent out an email last night. The temperature is cooling here. Bring a warm jacket or two. So we're going to have a great time this weekend. We're going to celebrate life and go from the 4D to the 3D. People go from virtual to real. I'm looking forward to that. We're going to have a great time, great food, great music, great information on the health tip. And I'll see you all who's coming on Thursday and Friday. And for those of you not coming, I will be streaming some of the stuff. We'll be streaming the Friday Farcast, and you'll get to meet a lot of the people that are in the chat room.
for those who want to be on the air and be interviewed. So that's happening. And I'm thinking that I'll probably stream, I might stream the concert as well. Still trying to work out the details on that. All right, use your head to discern what's real, your heart say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thanks for being a part of today's show. And I probably will do one more show tomorrow. And then after that, you won't see me again until Friday with the Friday Farcast. Okay, bye for now.